This is the SAU Report, a program featuring interviews with the faculty, staff, students, and alumni of Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.
To the SAU Report. I'm Lori Porter.
And I'm Adrienne Lawton.
Our guest today is Dr. Kathleen Mallory, an English professor at Southern Arkansas University. Hello, Dr. Mallory.
Good afternoon.
Can you give us a little information about your educational background, where you came from, that kind of thing?
I'm a native of Carlisle, Arkansas. It's 30 miles northeast of Little Rock on I-40 now. Rice country, I always call it. My first remembrance was rice fields all around, and in the fall my parents had cotton. I went to a one-room school. We had one teacher who taught all of the 8th grades, and when I got there the first day, the teacher put some words up on the board, and luckily my mother had taught me the alphabets, and I started pronouncing words right away. The 8th grade was spent at Dunbar Junior High School in Little Rock because our school system only went to the 8th grade. The 9th and 10th grades were at Fargo Agricultural School in Fargo, Arkansas. This school closed in 1949. At that point, I went to Piney Woods School, Piney Woods, Mississippi, about 22 miles south of Jackson. I spent 2 years there. I finished high school there. There I learned to play musical instruments, I learned typing, I sang in the choir, I learned piano, I learned office procedures, and when I graduated there, I went to Philander Smith College. I graduated in 4 years. I went to the University of Arkansas for my master's immediately after that on what they call the Ford program. Dr. Frank Irwin recruited me, and I came to SAU every Saturday for 6 hours of graduate credit. Those pine trees out there were about 4 feet tall, the ones in front of Overstreet, and I went to class in Overstreet. Mm-hmm. Then when I finished my master's, I taught at Stevens, because you didn't ask me that.
No, that's
that's another question. But anyway, I got my master's then. It was sometime later before I went to Colorado State University. I did an English Institute there in 1965. In 1979, I did a Linguistics Institute at Ohio State University, and I finished the work on my PhD in 1983 at the University of Nebraska.
Goodness.
Well, obviously, from your background, you've been teaching, and for quite some time. Has that always been a dream of yours? Has teaching just come innately to you, and it's fulfilling, rewarding?
Actually, I didn't plan on being a teacher. Mm-hmm. When I graduated from college in 1951, there weren't a lot of jobs for black women. Teaching was primarily the best job for teachers. Some few women were secretaries, but there weren't many people who could afford a secretary or have a reason for one. So this is how I got into teaching. My minor in college was music and my major was English. And consequently, the Ford Foundation said that people who had these strong backgrounds in 2 disciplines might make better teachers. So they offered the 5th year in education, and that's how I got my master's through the Ford Foundation.
Wonderful. Do you have a preference of, since now that you are a teacher, do you prefer teaching high school kids or college kids? Do you have a preference in that view, or?
Well, each one has been different. Actually, I taught middle school once, and that was fun. I taught junior high, and there's something special about that group. They're just always moving, so you have to keep them busy.
Right.
You have to keep you have to keep up with the curriculum, and then of course I had high school, and they have other agendas too. College has been less stressful as far as discipline is concerned, but it has been just as much work, if not more.
That's cool. We also know that you went to school during the days of integration. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And
you mean segregation?
Segregation. Was that a problem? Did it affect you in your education?
It did affect me. My parents built my grandmother a house so that the grandchildren, meaning myself and my cousins, would have somewhere to live to go to school. There was no school near me. In fact, well, let's see, there was 2.5 miles, but to get there, it flooded, the road flooded in the winter. So I was just a little 6-year-old, and my parents weren't going to let me miss days and that sort of thing. So they took all the money from the cotton crop, built my grandmother a house a year or so before we got school age, and we lived with my grandmother and walked to school every day, past a high school. And that went until, well, they didn't integrate while I was in high school. I went to boarding school in Fargo because there was no school above the 8th grade for me. And then when Fargo closed, I went to Piney Woods, Mississippi again because there was no high school above the 8th grade for me.
So you had to go off to get your education just
That's right.
because you were a black child.
Black child, that's right. Now they gradually started adding grades to, well, no, they didn't. They sent students first to Lone Oak, Arkansas. They bused them up there. And until integration, they bused them up there. After integration, then they went to Carlisle High School. So I would have spent quite some time before I would have been able to go to school. In fact, I was out teaching and working by the time integration took place.
So what was it like to teach before the days of integration? I saw that you had taught, as you said, in Stevens. You started teaching in 1955. What was that like?
Well, I had a self-contained classroom, and because I have no comparison with the other students, I don't know. But I had a lively group of youngsters that I had to keep busy, and I taught a self-contained classroom that year. The next years that I was there, I taught only English to the middle school. We decided to departmentalize. I will say that I haven't found anything different about the skills of the two students after integration. And I don't think that I was less prepared than anyone else. It's just that society had a different system for me to go through.
In that sense, can you explain a little bit how teaching before integration helped you become the person that you are today, the teaching skills that you try to pass on to students?
Actually, I think my philosophy and my attitude was embedded in or sprang from my high school experiences, because at each school we had vespers, we had assemblies all the time, and we were constantly told that when we go back home, we have to give back.
Right.
That no man is an island, that we have to help someone else up. That lifting as we climb was one of the philosophies of Dr. Brown and Dr. Jones.
Giving a hand up.
Hand up.
Hand up.
Put your hand
Instead of a
under-
handout.
That's right, hand up.
Hand up.
On this campus today, as a student and you probably as faculty, see that there is a sort of segregation on our campus. You see, if you go into the cafeteria, a lot of times you will see black students sitting here, white students sitting over here, or just walking through campus, you will see a group of black students here, a group of white students here, foreign exchange students over the other direction. How do you think that we as students and faculty can help change this and help ourselves become social with the other group, since it is so many years after integration began?
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure that I have the definitive answer for that. But I will say that students need to see faculty interacting with one another. Students need to hear black and white faculty praising each other's skills. The student leaders probably need to say, we're going to integrate this campus. and they can put someone at each table to talk about different things, and they can invite students into the different organizations, and if a student wants to come in and if it's an honor organization, some tutoring can go on.
Right.
I saw a documentary one time at a university where there was tutoring at night. The better students tutored students who had less skills, and a real concerted effort was made to lift everyone up to the standard that he would be expected to meet.
And speaking of lifting up, we also know that you're involved in a wonderful group called the Youth Writing Festival. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you started that and what it involves?
Well, my dates are going to be a little hazy, right? In 1984, 85, or something like that, the Rockefeller Foundation tried to get a national write-in project for the whole state of Arkansas. And they tried to get the funds through in national education, NEA of the arts. I'm getting that wrong. But anyway, we had seed money, and we had one pilot program here on campus. The problem, though, was that this program paid for teachers' tuition and books. And after it was over, we didn't know where we could get any business or any funding for public school teachers' tuition and books. We are now looking at the project again, hoping that we can get funding for this kind of thing, so that teachers' skills can be upgraded throughout the public schools, and they can get some refresher courses and ideas about all of the research that's out there about writing. But anyway, when this course was over, we decided that we wanted something. We wanted to have something ongoing, living, I guess if you would say, that would show that we had worked on this project, that would recognize composition in the public schools. So we decided that on the Youth Writing Festival, and the teachers prepare the students, prepare the entries, and send them in, and we give them prizes. There's $25 for the first prize, and then for let me go back a little bit. We have categories: short story, essay, and poetry for grades 1 through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 9, 10 through 12. And each first place in each category gets $15, $10 for second, $5 for third, and a little trophy, a little plaque. The top awards from all of the first place winners we call the Dan Ford Award in memory of in honor of Dr. Ford, who helped get this project started on campus. And the top essay gets $25, a plaque to go in the trophy case at school. We say that there ought to be trophies in the case for academic achievement as well as athletic achievement.
We also know that you brought some of the essays that have been sent to you, and if you don't mind, we'd love to hear a few of them.
I would be glad to.
Okay.
Let me, what did I do? There it is. This one is from Jessica Wooten at Bismarck High School, Bismarck, Arkansas. It's called Wind Stallion. Wistfully, he waits motionless, his languid, curious gaze on me. His velvet ears tuned to my voice. I throw out my arms to see him flee. His powerful muscles like waves lapping ashore. This streamlined beauty glides, his powerful neck leading the flight. The satin coat ripples with every bound. The wind stills in awe at the breathtaking sight. His nostrils blast. His screams freedom. He tosses his silken hair. My heart aches as he returns, and I walk away.
Oh, that is wonderful. How old was she? Do you know
This
what
was
grade?
probably a 11th grade student from Bismarck High School.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Would you like another one?
Sure,
Okay.
please.
This is from the mind of the soldier, Greg Keene, Crossett High School. This is a first place winner. This is called From the Mind of the Soldier. He didn't know what was to come: brutal deaths, beatings of family and friends, destruction of homes, burning of churches and stores, fighting for a right he already has. A soldier, young, inexperienced, trying to save his homeland, stands alone with his blood-covered hand clutching a gun, torn, smudged, mask covering his face. He must survive, fight, perhaps die.
Oh, goodness.
These students write some powerful poems.
They sure do.
Do you ever get a chance to have interaction with the students that send you the poetry?
Well,
Do you ever get to meet them, or do you ever have a...
they come to
they?
campus for the Youth Writing Festival, and when they come to campus, we do a workshop with them, and we're trying now to do workshops with the teachers, and we get them to write, and we show teachers various writing strategies. We have Dr. Klein, Michael Klein, came in for about 10 years or more, and last year Dr. Brad Herzog did the workshop. So they get a workshop, and about 100 students come to the workshop, and we hear them read, and then we give them the awards here. And it's a lot of fun.
It seems like a lot of fun. It seems like that you really help children with their creativity. How do you, if a teacher asks you, or in your being a college professor, how do you try to get a student to use their creativity in their writing?
Well, the first thing I try to do is to let the student relax and understand that writing is not something to be afraid of. That's the first thing. And the next thing that I do is try to help them to pick a topic first that they understand.
Right.
That when they initially start writing, it must be something that they already have experience with.
Right.
Okay. And then I let them write. They brainstorm, they write, then we come back and reshape it, we revise it until they get the piece where it is acceptable. And then later on, they can begin doing work without having to go through all of that. But writing is a continuous process. It isn't something that you just sit down and do. I have to revise sometimes 4 and 5 times before I let something go.
I know as a student, it's hard for me to get something right the first time, and every time I revise it, it seems as it gets better in the creativity process
That's right.
also.
That's right. If you let students know that, you take the fear out of it. You have to take the fear.
Right, and that's a really hard thing for college students, and I think high school students also.
Where do you get the students that participate in this festival?
Where do they
come
live?
from?
Where do they go to
live?
school? All right. They come all the way from Lake Village, Pine Bluff, down to South Arkansas, on over to Murfreesboro, DeQueen, Locksburg. We have some from Arkadelphia, Bismarck. One year we had some from Fayetteville, but I imagine that was a bit far for the student to come. But we did send the awards.
That's so they're able to all over the
All over.
state.
We send out invitations, mostly the bottom half of South Arkansas. And we get 400 or 500 entries. We get more than we can handle.
It must be a very powerful thing for them to be able to enter a college level festival with their work and have it to be seen by professors and be able to win prizes and trophies, and very exciting for them.
Well, I imagine, but it's not, they write on their own levels. It's just that this activity is held here at the college, sponsored by the English department, and I think they're thrilled. When they get these prizes and they get money, they just thrilled to death. They just love it.
It shows them that they can actually write.
It builds
to a wonderful-
self-esteem.
That's exactly right, and
Builds
they need it so
self-esteem.
much. Can you You had an example yesterday when I visited you in your office. A third grader had written a story about a worm, and I just thought that was wonderful.
Well,
I was wondering if you had it with you today, maybe.
I've got it. I think this is just really, really neat. We had typewritten this, but right now this one is in
The original form?
In the original form.
Can you just hold that up and just show the writing of the third grader, just to show that what that looks like? And
Well, this third grader, I imagine, can write a little better than this, but anyway, this is a third
this is
grader.
an example of what they look
What
like
they
when
look
they
like.
come to you.
There was a boy and a worm, and it was a sunny Sunday morning. That night, the boy's dad said he would go fishing in the morning. But there was one problem. They didn't have any bait. The boy had a worm farm, so they decided to use the boy's worm farm for bait. They reached in and got 20. So the alarm bell rang and rang, but the guards didn't come. The queen worm went to see what the problem was, and the guards were not there. Now the queen worm now knew she was all alone, just the old dirt and her. And so she called out all the guards, worms' names. So they came up with an idea. They said that they would go and see if the preschool for worms were okay. But the teacher was gone. The worms were throwing paper worm planes, blowing worm spitballs, and talking loud. When Royal Queen Worm told the problem, the baby worms started acting good and listening. So all they found was crusty old soil and the servant. The boy's father had taken the guards as extra bait. The boy and his father were driving to the lake. His father said, "Here we are, Bragg Lake." And the little boy said, "I hope I don't get eaten by any alligators." But as soon as they stepped out of the car, it began to rain. They had to return all the innocent worms to their home. It was a very wormy, happy day for the worm farm. Third grader.
That's just, even he's a third grader and he's talking about worms. I think it's so amazing that every part of the story is in there.
Well,
You have
everything
the-
is there. The introduction, the storyline, the conclusion is sort of a climax is
Right.
there, and a resolution of the story. Everything is there, and I know he hasn't been taught this.
Right.
But children can naturally do these things when they are left to be creative.
And it's a reflection of a third grader's life.
That's right.
With his father and with the worms.
That's
and,
right. That's right.
Do any of these stories and essays, are they published in a book, or do you just type them out so you have them, the Foundation Festival has them? What do you do with those?
Well, we're trying to work on getting a book together now. In the past, the only thing that we have done is put together a collection like this, and we sent it to the public schools. So a lot of public schools have a compilation like this in their libraries. But we would like to take the first place winners in all categories and see if we couldn't do a book.
That would be wonderful.
That would be wonderful for them to see
I
that
think
they were
so.
actually published.
Out of all the stories that have been published or that you've read, are there any favorites that you can remember? Or
There is one that I really like, but I couldn't find it because she came to see me yesterday, and it would take some searching. But this particular one was written by a student in Crossett. It was called Ballerina Bridge, and I can describe what happens in the poem. It seems as if the students are playing in a little island in the middle of a pond or something, and this bridge that moves is their connection to the land, to the playground. And these children run across this bridge all of the time playing. And this particular student called that Ballerina Bridge because of the way, I suppose, that it would swing as they went across it to play.
And she was able to articulate the movement.
That's right, the movement of the bridge.
Of the bridge.
As if it were a ballerina. I thought that was a good analogy.
Beautiful.
Do you think students today are interested in writing? And if they're not, how do you try to get them to write to their full potential? I know I'm one of those students that you have to push me and try to get me to write to my full potential. Do you have any certain strategy that you try to help?
I can't say that I have any particular strategy that's any better than anything else, except that I try to encourage students and remove anxiety from the writing process. I give them an opportunity to revise because I think that's important. I think that teaching students is more important than grading students.
Right.
And I think that's about the only thing that I do. And it takes a lot more time to do that, but I think it's more rewarding.
As your career has progressed,
Has moved along.
has moved along, what are some of the differences that you find in the students today from when you started teaching in 1955? Is there any differences that you are notable, or maybe the way that you teach? I mean,
Well, all along the way, I've tried to be creative, and I've tried to help students learn what they ought to learn. I've tried to recognize their different learning styles and the way they approach the learning process. I can't say that students have changed that much.
do you think that the invention of television has anything to do with children being less creative or wanting to write less?
Well, I'll
And
tell you one
reading.
thing that television has done. I call it, maybe I shouldn't say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think that students want everything instantly.
Yes.
I call it the instant potato kids. They want everything instantly. They don't always want to stop and figure things out. And I think that's a tragedy.
It is.
Kind of like on the internet. It comes up instantly and every
Instant.
student uses it.
Well,
magically.
they think that everything ought to happen just right now, but they don't understand delayed gratification. And they have to learn, somewhere along the line, they're going to have to learn about delayed gratification.
I read in your resume that you have attended many conferences around the U.S. Can you tell us a little bit about the conferences and what their purposes are?
Well, my favorite conference is the National Council of Teachers of English. There will usually be over 10,000 people at those conferences. There will also be a number of workshops. What you learn at those workshops, or what you're exposed to, will be a number of researchers who have done a lot of outstanding research, and you go and you listen to them and you can pick up their ideas. You get a program so that you can write them later and find out more about what they are doing, what they're studying. So many of them give you a handout and with the bibliography, and you can go into those bibliographies and find out what's going on. But there is a wide range of topics at those conventions
Very beneficial with each other.
that helps you grow.
Yes, they help you
I
grow.
also read in your resume that you are a sponsor of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. What is some of the advice that you give those girls on living in this year, 1997, and into the future?
Well, first of all, I've been a Delta since 1952.
Oh, that's
Okay, I want to throw that in. I've been a
That's
Delta
wonderful.
a long time. One thing, our sorority has a 5-point program, and the young women have to have activities
right.
that will fulfill the objectives of all of those goals. Scholarship, education. I didn't know about that question. I would have been prepared. Scholarship, education, cultural activities, voting, and international. For instance, what did we do? We were working with Minnie Mandela
Right.
before her husband was was released from prison, and we have a lot of international projects.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Mallory, for being with us. You're a very interesting woman. Thank you for being with us today. I'm Lori Porter.
And I'm Adrienne Lawton.
Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
The SAU Report is a production of broadcast journalism students in the Department of Theater and Mass Communication at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.